Welcome to the show. We hope you have a blast. Thanks for making time for the Dealer Talk podcast. Another business leader, here's a penny for your thoughts. This ain't a regular conversation, baby. This that Dealer Talk. Yeah.
What up? Welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk podcast. This is your host, Herb Anderson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Man, did I just commit like the biggest sin of podcasting, leaving my phone on? I apologize for that, folks. Listen, I'm super excited. We have just a couple more sessions left to wrap up our fifth season. And I'm already thinking about a couple different ways to kind of switch it up for season 6. So thank you so much for tuning in and checking this one out. We have none other than Felicity Marontate on the program today. Felicity, what's up?
Hi, thank you for having me.
How you doing? Right on. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know we've been back and forth trying to make this thing happen. So I really appreciate you making it work for us.
No problem.
So I kick things off with a background. So tell us about you.
Awesome. So originally, I was in education and I was working with at-risk youth, children with autism, and First Nations communities out in northern Alberta. So understandably, that gets a little exhausting and mentally draining. So I was like, yeah, I'll take a year off. I'll see how I feel. And I'm going to jump right back into it because that's my passion. That's what I wanted to do at the time. And then life obviously throws curveballs. So I ended up and I realized how much I miss my family because I'm here in Ontario and being in northern Alberta, where the nearest town is probably another 4.5 hours away, is not where I wanted to be. So, I kind of bounced from here to there to see like what I really wanted to do and else I was passionate about. Instead, because I realized that it wasn't necessarily the space that I was going to best grow in. Because at the time I was in my early 20s, I was an eager beaver, so excited to help everybody that you end up burning yourself out. So I actually jumped into business development. Fell in love with that and teaching first aid because I was like, I've got an education background. I can do this. It won't be that bad. So we grew our first aid company and I worked in the business development, marketing, and teaching side of that until we actually sold it to a larger first aid provider. And then I kind of found myself looking for a new job. And I was like, I don't know where else to go. I'm not really sure. At the time I was living in a really small town. And then I found that one of the dealerships here in London where I live now was hiring for business development. I was like, I'm really good at that. I can do that. I can try that out. Why not? So I jumped into an interview with them and got the job right away with the service department there. And I fell in love with it. Like absolutely 100% fell in love with the process, with the side of customer retention and how important service is. And then from there, after a year of doing that, I had the opportunity to jump over to the vendor side. And I've been here for 2 years now with Vitumus for their bumper ads platform and glove box.
Right on. I love that introduction into the automotive space. I feel like there's a lot of us that kind of end up like, man, we gotta make it so that little kids are like, I want to go into the car business.
Yeah. Like I grew up loving cars and motorcycles. Like I've been around them my entire life and I always loved it. But I always had this idea of like the typical dealer, you know what I mean? Like where people are like, oh, the dealership, they're going to scam me. They're going to sell me what? Something I don't need? Any car salespeople. And then when you get into the actual industry, you're like, oh, this isn't so bad.
Right.
There's actually really wonderful people here that are just genuinely trying to help. It's not the type of thing that everybody seems to think it is from like the 80s or even the 90s.
Yeah.
It's such a massive shift.
I totally agree. We need a Got Milk sort of a campaign. You know what I mean?
Not automotive.
Yeah, something like that. Like, yeah, because when you think about it, like that whole initiative, it wasn't brand specific. It was just about the product. So And I'm kind of joking, but at the same time, I'm kind of
No, but I'm
serious.
serious.
Yeah, like it's not that we're gonna make the car business cool again. We're just gonna make the car business cool, like
Exactly.
so.
Like we're gonna remove that mentality of it's the old boys club of we're just here to sell you a car. That's all that matters. Get
Right.
off my lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you buy an extended warranty? And that pressured sales into more of a, hey, we're here to educate you and support you through this entire process because we understand that it's a massive choice in your life.
Yeah, no,
right
for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And we're definitely going to cover more about that here in a second. But before we kind of get into it, so we typically don't set up anything. But when I reached out to you, I was like, hey, I wanted to talk about this very specific thing because I haven't heard a lot of talk on it. And I think that that evolution that we've been talking about since COVID started is kind of going into a second phase or maybe even a third phase, which is how are we going to react now that we're, hopefully on the other side of it, which I feel like we're almost there. I'm still reluctant to say post-COVID because I feel like there's still a lot of that stuff going on, but I definitely see more of that light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Definitely.
But yeah, before we cover that, I just, just because of your background and kind of your intro, I always like to ask that question of, what was it about the car business when you got into it that you were like, oh man, wow, this is pretty dope. Like I want to make a career out of it. And I asked because I had that same kind of moment right in my career, and I've shared it here multiple times. But I'd like to get your perspective on that.
So, like I said, I was working in service BDC for a Kia dealership, and it was actually a customer that changed my perspective. So I had taken her call, and she had serviced at a different dealership, had an absolutely horrible experience to the point where I was even like, oh, that is gut-wrenching. I am so sorry. Let's have you come here. I'll do everything in my power to make sure that you don't have that kind of same experience. And understandably, I did. She left not only happier because the whole process was transparent about here's the actual problems with your vehicle. This is how we're going to fix it. What's your priority of what you need to fix? Because we worked as a team to get her to that point. She actually called back just to say thank you and say, hey, change my perspective on this. Like I don't hate servicing my car anymore. And that for me was kind of that pivotal moment was where I was like, I didn't realize how much people hate servicing their cars or how inconvenient it can be. Mm-hmm. Because for me, I was like, oh, it's just an oil change. Go get it done. Or just cool and flush, just go get it done. Like it needs to be done, so just do it.
Right.
Instead of that mentality of this is a whole experience for the customer and every time they come in here.
Yeah, that's a very good I really like that story because it oftentimes is that connection with the customer where you're like, wow, man, this is not only is it good because it's I'm assuming it was a very rewarding experience for you, but
Absolutely.
At the same time you kind of see it, right? You're like, oh, there's a lot of ways for us to help the customer, and what better way than to be in a career where you can that has all the financial opportunities that the automotive industry does, but at the same time, you get to help people all the time. And I know it sounds super cliche or whatever, but it's true, like it's extremely rewarding.
Our cars, I think, are the second most expensive purchase in our lives besides houses.
Yeah.
So to make an impactful experience on somebody, that's huge, especially when it's coming to something like a vehicle purchase or vehicle service, because at the end of the day, you want them to come back. You want them to stay with you as a customer. And the only way you're going to do that is by making these meaningful experiences for them and making it easy to do service with you.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. All right. So kind of moving things along, let's talk about what I wanted to get into in this conversation. And that's the customer retention. I don't want to say process because I think that varies from store to store and brand to brand, but the strategy rather. Like, I think that because of kind of what's happened here in the last year or so, maybe there's an opportunity for a reflection there. And I'd love to get your perspective. Let's start with the 50,000 view and then hopefully get granular and maybe even leave some strategies behind for some of the people that are tuning in.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I love that you said it's unique to dealerships. So I personally work with over 60 dealerships on a daily basis on their customer retention strategies. So for me, everybody is unique. Every dealership's going to be unique. Every department's going to be unique in their strategy. So it's really important to reflect on how things are working. And I think the first step you need to take in that reflection is looking at why your customers are leaving in the first place, especially in this, I don't want to say post-COVID world, but even just during COVID in general. It's so important to look at not only your customer retention, but where your customers are going if they leave your dealership. So people normally don't just up and leave for no reason. It's a matter of convenience. It's a matter of experience, or sometimes price. So for customers to just say, hey, you know what, I don't want to service here anymore, or I don't actually want to purchase my next vehicle here, there's something that was missed, or some kind of step that was missed in not just your process, but in the environment as a whole. So I think when you really break it down at the end, when you really look at it as a process, I know you said don't look at it as one, but I always like to look at it as a process. Just
Sure.
because for me, process is about habits, and it's about your daily habits and what you consistently do. And that customer retention needs to be a consistent experience for everybody in your dealership, whether it's the parts department, it's the F&I department, it's even your controller. There's always something going on to impact your customer retention strategy at the end of the day. Yeah, so as far as the strategy goes from a customer retention standpoint, I think I don't want to break it down to two types of dealerships, but there's definitely two types of dealerships out there. There's the ones that have a heavy focus on customer retention, and then there's the other ones that are like, oh, it's fine, they'll just come back. So I think COVID really forced dealerships to look at it as an important thing, where maybe sometimes some of them weren't before, especially even like with digital marketing, since we're in the digital age now. A lot of them were looking at customer retention as just something that is an average, normal thing. Customers will naturally just come back to the dealership. Oh, they bought their car here, they service here occasionally, they'll come back. They're loyal to the brand, which doesn't always mean that they're loyal to your dealership. So I think when COVID hit, it was the dealers that really looked at it and said, hey, you know what, how can we best help our customers right now? Whether it's sanitizing packages, if it's complimentary service, whether it's valet service, or even contacting them to let them know about their extended warranties or any kind of F&I packages that they've had purchased, like short-term, like disability packages or anything like that, that really made an impact on the overall experience for their customers.
Right on. I really like that, and I want to dissect it because there's a couple of things that I want to get in that kind of align with where my thoughts have been here on this topic. Number one is, customers leaving, right? So why? It's not that dealers don't realize that they're losing customers. Of course, I mean that's just the nature of the beast. We're gonna, for different reasons, it doesn't have to be experience based. They move, they switch brands or whatever. But what do you think is one of the main reasons we're losing customers in this kind of an environment? And let me expand on that a little bit. Do you think that we lost customers because we didn't inform them of the things that we were doing to ensure their safety? Do you think that we potentially lost customers because we didn't adapt and offer them a way to maybe purchase online or service by picking up their vehicles, things of that nature? And I guess a little bit more relevant to where we are now today, and I don't know how the situation is in Canada, but I have to assume it's similar here where, demand and supply have kind of taken over, and we're, as an industry in a really good place profit-wise. But do you think that we're in potential of losing customers because they got to buy the car because we have the car and nobody's going to get it, but they're going to have a bad taste in their mouth because they paid all these extra dollars over what the car was worth? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things there. So first of all, I think the automotive industry, as everybody knows, is notoriously behind in the times for certain things. Yeah. So the ones that really failed to adapt to a COVID-centered world are the ones that really failed their customers. So whether it made it difficult to purchase a vehicle online, or if they made it difficult to even service their vehicle, because service is essential. Like, you need to service your vehicle, especially if it's been sitting for a long time. So the ones that didn't make it easy for the customer to do that are the ones that have failed their customers and are going to see a decline in their retention at the end of the day. So that's definitely the one point. And then the second point to that is educating your customers and letting them know, hey, these are the things that we have in place to keep you safe. These are the ways that you can purchase a vehicle if you absolutely need to, or if that's something that you're in the market for right now. And this is how you can service your vehicle, or these are the items or options that we have available to you to service your vehicle, whether it's valet service, it's shuttles, or hey, our shuttle service is no longer available, but we're providing you with an Uber pass, or like here's a $10 voucher, or even just saying, hey, here's our new waiting room. This is how we're keeping you safe. This is what we're doing for you. And it's just having that education piece behind it to say, hey, here's how we were communicating with you, so we're not just leaving you in the dark. Because if you leave your customers in the dark, they're going to go to dealership B that's saying, hey, here's how we're keeping you safe during the COVID pandemic. Because now they're going to feel more confident, and their confidence is going to be placed in that dealership, not yours. Even if there's never even serviced there before, had it recommended from a friend or anything like that. And then with the sales side of things, I find right now it's super important to be communicating with your customers about the process of the sale, because there's such a lack of inventory, especially in trucks in Canada. I don't know about the States, but right now Canada is a huge deficit in trucks. Other brands are doing okay, like sedans and things like that are doing a bit better, especially the Hyundai brand is doing a lot better than, let's say, even GMC. So communicating with your customers and saying, hey, we may not have what you want here on the lot right now, but here's our process for pre-ordering a truck. Here's how we're going to help you. And if you know that adding running boards on that truck because it's a custom order is going to take an extra 3 weeks in that process, then advising them of that and saying, hey, do you mind waiting that 3 weeks, or do you want us to take those off and we can order them for you and install them once they come in? Makes a huge difference versus, oh, I don't know when your truck's going to be here, maybe 2 weeks. Or even just saying, hey, like you said, we should really get you into this vehicle, even though it's overpriced right now. And we know it's overpriced, but we're not going to give you any loyalty bonuses to get into it.
Yeah, right on. I really like those points. I'm really concerned about that last piece. I totally agree with you, by the way. I think that if we weren't providing information to our customers from the onset of this whole situation, we lost some people, right? Because especially, think about the wonderful opportunity that we had to reach out to our database customers. We actually had a reason to contact them, and not in a, come buy my car sort of a way, but really to show them that we care about them as part of our community, as part of our family. And then if we didn't provide that information, I know there was several dealers that certainly did, right? And so me as a consumer, I would gravitate towards those who provide me with the most information possible, whether it's for my purchase or maintenance, or if I have questions about a certain industry or topic or whatever the case may be. And I think that a lot of consumers are like that, especially in the Google era, right, where you can go there and get information to anything. So, but the sales side, I'm a little bit concerned, and I know this is probably going to go down the wrong way. So, apologies in advance, but these are just my thoughts. Yeah, but I feel like, listen, I'm super happy for the industry. I'm happy that we're able to make profit. I think that we've been kind of, as an industry, we've been, why is it that we are expected to sell our vehicles, almost at cost? Like we don't do that in the real estate business. You know what I mean? So I'm super excited for that and happy, and I have customers that have benefited from that tremendously, and just by association, I've benefited from that. So it's great. But at what point do we say, hey, maybe a little bit much is too much, and this may be something that a customer is kind of forced to put up with right now, but maybe they're going to remember that? I don't know. Maybe not.
I think it's creating a bit of a divide right now between customers that are in market and desperately need a vehicle, and customers that are like, I'll just wait. I really don't need to trade in my vehicle right now. I really don't need a new vehicle, so I'm just going to hold on to this one. And it's creating that divide there where it's, people aren't wanting to spend that extra money, especially if they don't have it right now. So I think dealers are trying to find a happy medium between, hey, you need to come buy a vehicle because we need to stay open, because everybody forgets that service is an option that's
Right.
to keep you open. But, we have salespeople that need to feed their families. We have to keep things going. Like, we have a process that we need to operate on. But at the same time, they need to remember that customers may not be in a financial position to purchase that vehicle at a marked up value or price, or they may not even be in the market right now. So I think it's finding that happy medium of, are you in the market? If not, here's your options for when you're ready to be in the market. Or let's encourage you to get into the market by saying, we may not have the vehicle that you want in stock. Let's say you're currently in a Versa. Maybe some of those customers are looking at going into a Rogue because they found new hobbies through the pandemic. If you're into the Nissan brand, or same with Kia, like maybe they're in a Rio and that's being discontinued, maybe they can jump into something like the Forte, which is one of the best-selling cars here in Canada now. So it's just finding them where they are in their journey as a customer and giving them those options of, here's the different ways you can go, and here's what we're going to offer to help get you to that point.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm concerned that I'm not advocating to, hey, let's not make money, because when you think about it, if the demand is there and the supply isn't, then that causes prices to go up. I mean, that's economics 101, right? But we have to be able, because you can't compare it against anybody, so you can, if you have the only car in 50 miles or 100 miles or whatever, like I'm talking the only one, then, you shouldn't give that away. But what are you comparing that against? What if you're selling at a $10,000 over sticker or $20,000 over sticker? You know what I mean? And then the customer is like forced to buy it because they need a car or they want that car or whatever, a combination of the two. And they may purchase it because of the situation, but what are you going to do 3 years down the line when they need to trade it and they're in a negative equity sort of a situation? Or worse, like what I've been telling my dealers and what I've been noticing with the stores that I work with is, yeah, times are great, they're making money, but I've also noticed the bad reviews increase. And that's a concern, you know what I mean? Because, I think that there's two things happening. I think that we're getting a lot of action, which is great, maybe a little bit more than we can handle, maybe not so much this month, but definitely before this month. And so that's created some gaps in service and experiences. And then the whole pricing situation where I've seen reviews like, actually, I had to go buy this car because it's what I wanted and, whatever, but I had to pay this much over it. And, they pretty much took advantage of me, sort of a situation. Yeah. So you got to be really careful right now. I think you got to be paying real close attention. Are your negative reviews going up? And what are those reviews saying? Because that's the customers are communicating to you in a way through those reviews. I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, I agree with that. And I think you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, do I want to sell one customer 5 cars, or do I want to sell 5 cars to 5 different customers? And so who's going to have more value to you at the end of the day? Is it a short-term goal just to get these cars off the lot and sell them? Or is it you're thinking long-term of, I want to retain this customer because I know that they're going to end up spending more when they come back to me, and they're going to refer their friends and their family and everybody that'll listen in this Google world or this Facebook world. And more people are going to come to my dealership, and you're going to make more money long-term by being honest and transparent about the process and saying, hey, this is over market at the moment. This is how it's working. This is why everything is crazy right now, especially here in Canada. The housing market has boomed like crazy. So we can kind of compare it to that, where the average price right now is over 700,000 when it was like 300,000 before. It's gone crazy. Similar with cars, because there is such an influx in demand and a lack of inventory. And so I think when you're transparent with your customers and say, hey, listen, this is what you're getting for this price, and not overly charging them out of greed because you just want to sell it and you're the only one with that vehicle, it'll go a farther way for you than just overpricing it by $15,000 just because you want to make that profit.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. I think that's exactly what we have to be paying attention to right now. I mean, make the money for sure, but think about the impact of that in the future as well. Because, you know, I mean, you don't want to be in a situation where that's going to come back in a negative way. And I know that a lot of that is, you know, it's inevitable, but, you know, just try to minimize that. I mean, just pay attention to both sides of the equation, right? I mean, make money, right? Take advantage of the time, take advantage of the opportunity, but also thinking about the future, being a little
mindful.
Yeah. So here's a question that as I was thinking about it, I was like, man, is this a rhetorical question? But I don't know. I don't think so. When it comes to customer retention strategies, and this could go either way, front and back of the house. Do you think that what we were doing before is still effective now? Because a lot of that stuff hasn't really, again, I mean, I know I'm having the conversations with my customers. We're trying to brainstorm like what the answer is, right? Do we do the same things that we were doing before? In some cases it may work, but I think then we need extra layers now. Or do you think that if you had some sort of OCP or programs in place to kind of mine your DMS, you think that those are still relevant, or do we need to maybe step back and take a closer look at that?
It's a great question, and something I deal with on a daily basis. I'm really excited to answer this one, especially when we get new clients onboarded. I find a lot of dealers are still stuck in that old school mentality of, I need to blast my database. Everybody needs to know about this incredible sale. Everybody needs to know about how to service. Everybody needs to know everything. Mm-hmm. Please don't do that. All I'm going to say is please stop. As a consumer, please stop.
Are you meaning to say that if I get an email from you every single day, 3 times a day, that's a bad thing?
Oh, and then don't forget the text messages and the phone calls.
Right.
I don't know what it's like in the States, but Canadians don't love it. So I think really, and like you said about data mining is still going to being super important because we want to, it all relates back to the data.
Sure.
We don't want to send everybody a message because your message isn't relevant to everybody. So I think the main strategy is finding what your message is, and then targeting that specific audience and using that data mining capability to find that audience and say, hey, this message is relative to you right now. This is where you are in your journey. This is how we can help you. So it's not, hey, bye. I'm going to flood you until you unsubscribe and stop consenting to receive letters or text messages from me. It's more of a, hey, you're in the market, or hey, you're due for service, or hey, happy birthday, happy car-versary.
Right.
It's just building that relationship and building that value instead of just abusing your data like we used to do.
I love those, by the way. This is a total side comment there, but I love those personalized messages. Yes. You know, it's not about buy my product or anything. It's more about, you know, I think that if we, I don't know, as a marketer, this is probably a sin for me to even say this, but I think we should really consider eliminating all the communications that we send down and just replacing those with all touchy-feel, personal messages, sort of a deal, and leave the reminders to the. I mean, I'm dead serious about this. Go old school on the reminders and just do postcards like they do at the dentist office or at the doctor's office, like handwritten ones. You know what I mean? And then
that goes a huge way.
Yeah, for real. Like, I just feel like I've seen that work so well at some of the stores where they actually treat it just like that. And as a customer's checking out, they fill out their postcard right then and there. They ship it out the next day. They go in stacks or whatever, and then the customer gets it when their appointment's due or whatever. Like, I just feel like that's such an undervalued system, and it works.
Absolutely. And it's like, honestly, right now in this technology era, it's so easy to personalize things. Like, there's no excuse for your marketing not to be personalized, in my opinion. And maybe it's because I wasn't a marketer before I jumped into marketing and into the vendor side of marketing for automotive. I think for me, what it came, like when I see a dealer come in and they say, hey, this is my plan. This is where I'm kind of struggling. These are my pain points with customer retention. I can look at it like something like postcards and say, okay, what is your budget? What are you looking to spend? And come up with a couple different options for them. Because you could send a text message, you can send an email reminder, you can even send just letters or postcards, like you said, and quickly personalize them by just saying, hey, like you're due for service, or happy birthday. That's a huge one. I know there's Suburban Group in Michigan, in the States. They do that actually, where they were sending happy birthday messages, just a quick text saying, hey, happy birthday, congratulations. And that actually skyrocketed for their conversations and just the reply rates, because then they're having conversations with customers just saying, hey, thanks. You know, actually, I had a question about my vehicle, or I had a question about upgrading. So it's just opening that door, because it's not a, hey, come by, this is what I want you to do for me. It's all about, here's what I can do for you. How can I best help you as a customer?
Yeah, and imagine if you had that cadence, the same cadence that you have right now, but it was all personal and, again, not about the car, not about even the appointment, but more about like things that you're doing in the community, and birthdays and anniversaries of your purchase, and events that are local, and you know what I mean, like those sorts of things. And you got a lot of those. You had the same cadence of communication, but it was all about relationships and your local market, and about me as a customer. I just feel like that experience, just email, text wise, would be refreshing.
Very much so. And especially if you're not the type of dealer to constantly bombard your database with emails and texts saying, hey, this is it, this is the new car you need, this is what you want right now. And they get a surprise text message from you saying, hey, you know what? Just a heads up, we're supporting our community by doing this local run. Like we did it when I was at Kia. We participated in a 5K run, walk for me personally. Not the most athletic person anymore, but and it's just giving the heads up, like, hey, we're supporting this local hockey team, or here's how we're contributing back to our community, and this is what we're doing. Do you want to join us? That will make a huge difference versus here's our new sale, here's this, we want to buy your trade, we want this from you. Because maybe that customer's like, no, I really love my car, I actually really want to keep it or hand it down to my kid, but you won't know because you never have any conversations with them. There's no relationship built there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I love it, actually. All right. So let's kind of, we're getting close to that time, but I wanted to maybe take the next 5-10 minutes to talk about some strategies. Like, what do you see that's working? Any recommendations, tips? And then, well, let's start with that. And then I have one more before we wrap it up.
So just for any industry, it doesn't always have to be automotive. I like to break it down just into 5 quick, easy steps. So onboarding, education, say thank you and reward loyalty, stay in touch, and listen and act on feedback. So you want to onboard your customers into your dealership, get them ready, get them comfortable. And one way to do that is by sending them a welcome to the family package. And I don't just mean like, here's your do-a-tang that you get when you arrive at the dealership. Thanks for your purchase. Here's everything you need. Send them an actual personalized letter or an email saying, hey, thank you so much for your purchase. We really appreciate it. Here, leave us a Google review if you'd like on your experience, or if you have any questions, here's who to contact. And then even give them a walkthrough of your service drive-through, introduce them to the service advisors and the techs that'll be working on their vehicle so they feel comfortable coming in for service. And then 3 months from then, remind them, hey, you're coming due for service, or would you like a second delivery experience? And just creating that process and the onboarding experience for them so they feel welcome and they feel like part of the family and the dealership. And then from there, you can educate them. So you can educate them not only on their purchase or any F&I options that you might have, like such as like extended warranties and things like that, especially right now, it's really important. You can educate them on, like I said, the service process of, hey, when you come in, this is what service is going to look like. Because a lot of people don't end up servicing at the dealership because they're like, I don't know where to go. I don't know who to call. I don't know what to do. My car says oil change. I'm going to go to the Jiffy Lube right down the street that says it's 5 to 10 minutes. So it's just educating them on how things work in your dealership and how easy it is to be at the dealership, or what services you might offer, like a valet service or a shuttle service, and how they can take advantage of those. From there, you could go to just saying thank you. thank you goes a long way, whether it's a handwritten thank you note from your sales rep saying, hey, thank you so much for your purchase, or hey, thanks for your Google review. And then even rewarding loyalty goes a huge way. Like you said earlier, people want to feel valued. They want to feel like their purchase meant something to you. And rewarding loyalty doesn't always have to be, hey, here's $1,000 trade-in bonus. It could be, hey, here's part of, you are now introduced into our VIP program. Here's a free oil change on us, or here's an accessory credit, or here's $500 to our warranty program. So just rewarding that loyalty or rewarding referrals as well. And then
how would you set those up? Sorry to interject there really quick.
No, that's okay.
Would that be like, what would be the kind of like the strategy? Email, text, digital, phone calls?
I think strategy really depends on your data and the process that you have in place, because a lot of dealers are terrible for catching correct information. Right. So I think it has to take a huge step back and look at your data first and your process for collecting that data. So you can break it down and say, you know what, I've got X amount of addresses I can send, or I have this many valid emails I can send out. And it's really looking at how your customer wants to be communicated with as a strategy and what you actually have to work with.
Right.
And mining that data to say, okay, you know what, I've got this is what I can do with it. And then it's even working with somebody like me that can look at your data with you and say, hey, this is what your options are. Here's what we can do with this data that you're giving me. How would you like to proceed? Or sometimes I just tell you how you're going to proceed based on the best practice. Because no offense to some dealers out there, don't always follow best practices of any industry.
Do you find that there's one or another that works best? Then, like for me, it's always been about omnichannel. And I know that that's a kind of a buzzword. It's been thrown out there, in different facets or whatever. But the definition to me is same message, same look, same feel, multiple channels.
Yes,
so it's not multi-channel, it's omni-channel.
And it's necessary because you have to stay true to your brand, and brand consistency is going to be huge with customer retention because they want to feel like you're putting forth a consistent message for them.
Right. And also, like, I would add to that, I totally agree with what you just said, but what I would add is that it's also, you got to take into consideration the devices, man. There's so many different ways that the customer is consuming that information that you don't know which one's going to hit them. It could be a mailer. It could be they're on Facebook. It could be an email. It could be a text. It could be a phone call. And so if you don't control the narrative, it's very easy for the customer to get all these different, like this information from different places. And if it's not the same look, the same feel, the same message, then it's very easy for the customer to be like, hey, what's going on? Like, I got this message that says this, that said that. They already have distrust, and that just kind of enhances that whole perception, right? I don't know. That's just kind of what
I 100% agree with you. And it's true. Like you need that brand consistency to say, hey, here's how simple we're making it for you. Right. People love simplicity. I don't care what anybody says. They love simplicity. They love easy processes. They love just knowing this is what it is and this is what I'm going to expect from you. So, and it's delivering on that expectation every time. That's a huge strategy, is delivering on that customer expectation. You've set them up for that expectation that this is the omni-channel experience that they're going to have. So when you fail to deliver that, it creates that distrust. And it breaks down that relationship that you've spent hundreds of dollars and hundreds of hours building.
I totally agree. Dude, thank you so much. I love that we talked about that, and I love that we left that. You broke down that piece there for everybody, so you can rewind and listen one by one. But I totally agree. I think that the strategy makes sense, and it's critical. You have to have it. You have to have multiple channels, and you have to make sure that you're experimenting. I think that we don't experiment enough. You know what I mean? Like, change up your communications and make them all personal and see what that does. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that that's the strategy, right? Maybe it doesn't work for you, but try it.
I'd be hard pressed to find a dealership that doesn't benefit from personalization, to be honest.
Right. If nothing else, man, it's going to be different than your competitors, and who doesn't want that? Like,
exactly.
So there's one question I ask everybody that comes on the show. We're going to get on to that here in a second, but before that, I want to talk about digital, because I'd be, with digital marketing, like, we're going to talk about that. So on social media specifically, do you have any ideas or strategies or anything that we could do as an industry, and specifically to our brands that can create that not experience, because this is a different thing. We're talking about loyalty, but what can we do with our social media platforms to build loyalty with customers, with our community, with potential buyers that haven't even purchased from us yet?
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm a bit of an anomaly for somebody in their 30s. I actually don't have social media. The only social media I have is LinkedIn for work. I deleted it like 4 years ago. Best decision I ever made, just saying. On a personal standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, terrible.
I agree.
But I always check in with like my mother-in-law or like my parents or even my brothers or friends and say, hey, like what are you responding to? Like, what are you interacting with? Or I'll even look online because there's so many articles now online that you can find. And I think the biggest thing you can do as a dealership is to leverage your salespeople. Let them build their own personal brands. Because I find there used to be this mentality pre-COVID of, no, it's the dealer brand. You are representing the dealership. That's it. And there was this fear that salespeople will grow too large or be too successful almost. I think I may be way off base here, but I think some people had that fear.
No, I think we're totally on base.
Misrepresent the dealership instead of saying, hey, you know what? No, build a brand, be yourself, create something around you, because that's who people are going to stay loyal to. That's where your customers are going to stay loyal. So it's interacting with them on social media and adding them on Facebook, or if they're open to it, following them on Instagram, and creating that process around yourself in your daily life of connecting and touching base with your customers and being a part of their daily life. Like Meg Brazil does an amazing job with that. Yeah. General Motors Jeff Hunter, phenomenal. Or even somebody like Tyler Champagne, who does the Heated Seats podcast, does a really great job of connecting with his audience and building his own personal brand, and people are relating.
I object because they're all Canadians. We're
biased. I'm so biased. But on the vendor side, even like American Melanie Bourdain, phenomenal job of creating her own personal brand throughout the pandemic, and it's blown up. And she was actually VP of marketing before she swapped over to the vendor side.
It's a lot links.
But for somebody like her, it's connecting with that audience, whether it's dealership specific or whatever area you're in. It's just building your own personal brand and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I offer. This is the experience you're going to get when you come service with me or you come purchase from me. And I'm going to stay consistent to it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, it's funny because when I started the podcast in 2018, like one of the things that I was advocating for was that we needed to have more social media in the business. I felt like at that time, like there wasn't a lot of people doing videos, not a lot of people getting content. People were really scared of being on camera, and that I'm glad to say that, just a few short 2 years and a half later, oh geez, we're going on 3 years now in August. Wow, time flies. So, that's not the case anymore. Like there's definitely been an explosion and
there's been a huge uptick too, just because of the pandemic. Everybody's home and we're consuming so much content, but nobody really wants to follow your dealership's business page. At the end of the day, it's not a person. There's no emotional connection to it. There's no relationship built there. They build relationships with people. So when you leverage your brand, you leverage your people. And it doesn't even just have to be salespeople. It could be your service advisors that are leveraging their social media, or your techs that are sharing like on video, like on TikTok is a huge one right now, saying, hey, here's a quick way to know that your vehicle needs an AC checkup. It's creating that bond and that trust and relationship, because people tend to trust those that they see on social media, and that influencer kind of marketing idea. Not that everybody needs to be an influencer.
Well, yeah, but that's the other thing. Like, it's not for everybody too. So there's still there could be a good balance within your dealership of people that are on the digital side of things to have that covered, and then you have the people that
share it on your regular pages too.
Right. But I liked what you said. I wanted to comment on what you said about this idea that if there was. you can get too big, right? Your personal brand can get bigger than the image of the dealership, and that's a problem because I've run into that in some situations, and like that couldn't be further than what you should be doing. Like if you have somebody that is willing to get on camera and expose that and promote your product, encourage them to do that. You know what I mean? Take care of your people so that you don't lose that and you'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like, what is he going to do? He's going to, the salesperson is going to get so big that he's just going to go sell cars out of his garage or something. Like he needs to sell cars out of a dealership, right? So,
and if they go to another dealership, celebrate them. Be happy that they've.
But don't let them go to another dealership.
Yeah,
make it
that's
so
the
that
huge one. That's the biggest one. Make it. That's a whole cultural thing, but like make it a culture where they want to stay and they want to encourage other people to come to your brand and come to your dealership. Make it so like other places are jealous and they're like, no, I want to work there.
Sure.
And then that goes back to what you said in the beginning of making little kids want to work in automotive. It's giving them that opportunity to say, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. That's an awesome place to be. I can make an impact in somebody's life by working in automotive. But if your sales rep does happen to get too big for the britches, we'll say, and they end up moving to another dealership, you should celebrate that. Be happy. You're like, you know what? That's awesome that you've made a career move that makes you happy. I wish you nothing but the best, because then that also creates a culture of success where everybody feels like no matter what, they're going to be supported.
And it encourages them too. It encourages that positive behavior as well.
And it's such a small industry and small world that everybody knows everybody at the end of the day, whether you're American or Canadian. And especially with social media, everything's being shared right now. So by saying, hey, I'm happy for you, I'm excited, awesome, good job. Who knows, in 3 years' time, you may need a manager or you may need a sales rep to join your team again, and they may be available. And they may be like, you know what, I really had a great experience there. I thought the grass was greener on the other side. It wasn't, or maybe it was, but I'm ready to grow with you as a person. Or maybe your dealer principal opens a new dealership and you're looking for sales reps again. You can bring them back in and say, hey, you know what? Here's what I'm willing to offer you now. Want to come back? So it's always keeping that door open and keeping that positive environment and that encouragement culture of, hey, I'm stoked for you. Amazing. Wherever you're happiest, wherever you're going to be the most productive, I think is the best thing. And that's going to impact your customers too, because if your staff isn't happy, it shows. Like it shows so much. The moment they walk in, the moment they pick up that phone, you know somebody's happy in their job or not.
Right on. I love that. Felicity, thank you so much for doing this. This is awesome. I've had a blast. Super excited to share this. Yes, for sure. Now, there is one question that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and that question is, where do you see the automotive industry in the next 5 years and why?
Next 5 years, I think we're going to see a massive EV push. We're already seeing a huge push to EV, and I think it's going to continue there. But I also think we're going to see a massive shift in customer retention efforts and more personalized experiences. So we're already seeing it happen, and I think it's just going to take it that step farther that it really needs to go.
Right on. There it is, folks. Felicity Marontate, thanks again for doing this deal. I appreciate you so much. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as usual, we'll talk later.
We only host a well-respected. The vendor LexisNexis. We don't sell digital marketing. What you do? We inspect it with our DT vendor management solutions. We come in like the EPA to clear out the pollution. Take the trash out. Go keep your P&L clean. Your inventory lean.
From product pitches, meetings to cost negotiations, your vendors have you swamped. You have cars to sell, but most of your time goes in managing your vendor relationships. Wouldn't it help to have someone navigate the way ahead? Enter Dealer Talk Vendor Management Solutions. A filter between you and your vendor so you only have to deal with what's most important. We inspect your digital data to get optimum results for your money. Here's what we do. Give you an accurate idea of what's working and what's not for every digital service. Get vendors to submit monthly highlights, lowlights, and recommendations. Sift through their data to give you those metrics that matter. Evaluate all package, content, or cost changes and product pitches. Do monthly marketing budget analysis to ensure better ROIs. Finally, we give you concise reports and monthly videos with actionable insights. Now, you can focus on what really matters: selling cars. Contact us today and your first 30 days are free. Let's build your business together.